We've been learning about Shinui Koina. Yesterday we had the 5. One second. I'm not plugged in. Oh, I'm not plugged in. One second. I'm about to go there. Give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. My battery on the computer went dead. I didn't realize that it was not plugged in. Here we go. 1985. And then 1984. Okay, I think we are still being recorded. Okay, so we were learning all about Shinui Koina or not, and we had Abai who quoted the 5 Shitas who held Shinui was Koina. Bava held Lavdavka that he held Shinui was Koina, and then we had the fallout from that. Then we had the Takanos Hashavim. So at the end of the day, we actually have a fascinating combination of options and Shitas, because technically you can hold that Shinui is you can hold Shinui is Koina, yet because of a Takanos Hashavim, you can give it back, and you can hold Shin. I'm sorry, forget. You can hold Shin is not Koina, but because of a Takanos Hashavim, you get to keep it. And we're going to soon learn an opposite perspective that you can hold Shinui is Koina, yet as a Knas, you're going to have to give it back. That's something we're going to learn today. So whether or not you hold Shinui Koina is not really going to have any impact on whether or not you get to keep it or give it back, because there's Takanos that come into play both ways. So let's see the Gemara. Gazal paramu beres v'yolda. Taner Rabban. Hagoizel Rachel v'gazaza or v'yolda. I believe the Bach takes out the word upara. Hagoizel Rachel v'gazaza v'yolda. Yeah. Mishalim oisa. You have to give it back. There's gizay seh v'svlodei seh adiver there. So at first glance, this sounds like Shinui is not kind at all, and therefore everything goes back. We're going to see at the end of the day today that it's possible that Meir holds Shinui Koina, but it's a Knas that you have to give back. Divrei Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Gezela Chazeres Be'inei. No, you give back the Gzel the way it is, which means the animal post-birth, an animal that's not expecting, That's what you get back. Shimon Aimer, Royan Isaac Ilu Hishuma Etzloi, Bekesef. What you do is now let's go back to Rabbi Yehuda. Chazeres Beinei. No one's going to suggest that you stole a pregnant animal and you're going to get away with just giving back a non-pregnant animal. No one's going to suggest that that's what Rabbi Yehuda means. He means that you get to keep the vodas, but of course you have to pay back the owner an animal that's valued just as much as the animal that he stole was. So if he stole the behema muberes and is giving back a behema rekonis, of course he'll have to pay back the cash value difference between the two. And Rabbi Shimon Aimer, Roy Noisa ki ilu he shuma etzloi bekesef. When he steals it, at that point we assess its value. In that moment in time, we take a snapshot of its value. That's what the ganav has to pay. And the change in value, where it changed for the better, the ganav gets to keep. I believe at first glance, this sounds exactly like what Rabbi Yehuda says. So the Gemara Namad Beis is going to probe into what is the difference between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara clears a shaila. My time is Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir, who seems to say Shinui is not koina, is in fact that's what he holds, or Bishum de Kasover. I'm reading from the Bach. Bishum de Kasover Shinu bim koima oimei. Does he hold of a shita because of Shinu bim koima oimei? And then you might wonder why Abaye didn't include him in the list of Tanoim who hold Shinu bim koima oimei. Idilma but almost Shinu koina. Maybe really Rabbi Meir holds that Shinu is koina. So if that's the case, why does he have to give everything back? This is merely a Knas. So here you see this new perspective that could be, it's the opposite of the Knas Hashavim. Since you stole, you have to give everything back. Rashi says, Knas Takanos. Why would there be such a Knas? Because otherwise, the ganav benefits, he walks away with a benefit. What's the difference if the reasoning behind your mayor is because he holds Shinu Ini Koina, or if he holds it's merely a Knas? At the end of the day, you have to give everything back. What if the animal was nishtana, but it became worth less? If you hold that Shinu is not Koina, then you can give it back, and you can say Reishal Chalaf Anecha. But if you hold the Etzem Shinui is Koina, then it's too bad for the Ganav, and he has to accept the disadvantage. So let's see. V'nav Kamin of Rashi. The animal became worth less. If it's because Shinu is not Koina, well then Kachshanami Hadar. Then the Ganav should be able to give it back and say, Aray Shal Chalaf Necha. Kidi Isa Ashta, like it's worth now, too bad. The time of Mishum Kanosu, but really Vishinu Kani, well, if that's the case, then Mishalim Kedemi Kara. We're not going to give him a benefit, we're only trying to count him. So therefore he'll be stuck to keep the weak animal, and he'll have to pay back for a good animal. So that is the shayla. So Tashma. So we're going to spend a little time now probing Reb Meir to understand if Reb Meir holds Shinu in the Koina, or if he holds Shinu Koina, but we count him not to be able to benefit. So really the shayla is, if the animal got worth less, can he give it back because Shinu in the Koina, or must he keep it because Shinu is Koina? Tashma. Gozel behema v'hiskina. He stole a behema and the behema got old. I would say that's a kash v'lehodar. Or avadim v'hiskinu, mishalim kishas hagzela, he pays kishas hagzela. What does that mean? That seems to mean that he was koinit. He can't say Reshul Chalaf Necha, which means he must hold Shinu Koina, and it's just a Knas. Okay, that is the Tanakama. Rav Meir says by avodim omer loy hareshal chalaf hanecha. Only by avodim can you say hareshal chalaf hanecha. However, vilu behema kishashak zela, which is mashma that he's koinit. So he's koinit the animal, the animal. It's koinit animal if it became worth less. So clearly, he holds shinu koinit. Yisol kadaitach savar Rav Meir shinu bim koimai made. If you're going to say that Rav Meir holds shinu einay koinit. Afilu behemanami. even a behema, you should be able to say Harei Shal Chalafanecha. Elav Shmamina Kosav Meir Shinu Kaina. The master of Meir holds normally Shinu is Kaina, and that's why he keeps the animal. V'hacha Knasu de Takanos. But if it goes up, there's a Knas that he doesn't get to keep it. But if it goes down, Shinu Kaina. So that is the Gemara's first attempt at a raya. Now, what about an Eved? Why should an Eved be different? Because if you look at Rav Meir says, which means everywhere else, you'll say Shinu Kaina. Why by Avodim you say Reish Chalafanecha? Why would Avodim be different? If Shinu is Kaina. Why by Avodim would Shinu not be Kaina? So Rashi tells us the Avda Kimekarki Dam. Really Shinu Kaina, but Eved has a status of land. The Karka Hadra Be'ena. Karka, no matter what happens to it, always goes back to its original owner. Ve'ena nixelis liknois legazlin b'shinui. You could never be kind of land with a shinui. You can be kind of a chavetz, a metalton with a shinui.
What was the Shinui? No,
Got old.
just his value went down.
Yeah, got old. So Zok Gemara, no, you don't have a raya that Rav Meir holds that shinui is kind of. Maybe really shinui is ain't kind. Well, then if shinui is ain't kind of, so even the behema should be able to give back and say Aresh Chalafanecha. Maybe Reb Meir's argument to say that Evet should be different, that's according to the Rabbanan's perspective, who holds that Shinui is kind of. But Ladidi, really Reb Meir is saying, me myself, I hold Shinui ain't kind. And therefore, Vafilu Behema Nami. Even a behema, if it got older and weaker, you should be able to give it back to the Bailam. But even according to you, they argue with me. The Amrisu Shinu Kaina, that you hold Shinu is Kaina, and therefore I shouldn't be able to give it back. At least be agreeing with me by an Eved where you don't say Shinu Kaina, because it's Kimakarkidan. The Karka is Exelis. And the Rabbanan said no such luck. We don't treat an Eved like Karka to say that Shinu is in the Kaina. Rather, we treat an Eved like Metaltlin, where Shinu will be Kaina, and an Eved as well, if it becomes old, the Ganav has to absorb it. Okay, so we had one attempt to prove Rav Meir Shita, and we did not have a ride. The Gemara deflected. So let's try another attempt. We are going to succeed in that. Tashma, I think we're going to succeed. This is no longer speaking about a Ganav. So there's no Knossos that are applicable in this case. It's merely someone giving his wool to a tradesman, to a I think it's called a dyer. He's a dyer. Hopefully he'll live for a long time, but he's a dyer. To dye it red. V'tzavei shachar, and he dyed it black. He said, "Why should I use redding if I can use blacking? Maybe I'll have a good year." Or shachar v'tzavei adam. Rav Meir says, "Noit made simmer," meaning the merchant, or he's not a merchant, the tradesman, the craftsman is kind of the wool because he made a shini on it, and now he's kind of, and therefore all he has to do is pay the customer back for the value of his undyed raw wool. Yes, the maid simmer in the maid simmer ushvach. He doesn't have to give back the wool dyed. He only has to give back the raw material wool. So you see, Shinu is not koina. These all kadaitach. So Rav Meir Shinu ain't a koina. If you hold that Rav Meir holds that Shinu is not koina, well then the maid simroi ushvachai boile meisavlei. It's the owner's wool, even though it was dyed, and now the owner owns this dyed wool, even though it's not the dyed wool that it was, and therefore he should have to pay for the semer and the shvach, because in fact that's what he's technically buying from the owner. Now you can't say over here it has to do with the Knas or anything. El lav shmamina kasaver Rav Meir Shinu Kaina. Rav Meir masal Shinu Kaina. And when it comes to Geneva, even if you stole an animal that was Mubaris and it gave birth, and technically Shinu is Kaina, so you should own the animal, you should own the Vladois. But here there's a Knas that forces you to give all that back to the owner, even though you were koined. Shemamina. So we've concluded that really Reb Meir holds Shinu koined. So it makes a lot of sense why Abaye did not include him in the list of Tanoim who hold Shinu b'im koimai medes. The reason why you have to give back everything is because there's a Knas. Why should the Ganav be able to benefit of his Gneva? Whatever he got, he has to give back. Even the Vladois and the Gizois that would technically have been his. Gewalt? Ikod Amri, Halai Baila. There are those who say that we don't have a shaila at all about what Reb Meir holds, because the brisa that we learned earlier have to be flipped around. The Rav flips around the shittas in the brisa that we learned earlier. But Tani, and this is how he read it: Gozol Parah v'Eskina, Avadim v'Eskinoi, Mishalim Kishas Hagzela, Diver Reb Meir. Meaning, Reb Meir holds you pay Kishas Hagzela, meaning you're kind of everything. So clearly, Reb Meir holds that Shinui is koina according to this sheet of Rav who flips it around, and it's v'chachavim oimrim ba'avadim oimer loy hareshal chalafanech. So according to this sheet of Vade le Reb Meir Shinu koina, surely according to Reb Meir it will be Shinu koina. The hacha knas ahu dikakonas lay, and it's only a knas if you see where Reb Meir says that he has to give back the vlados, he has to give back the animal. That can only be because of a knas. So according to this version of Reb Meir, where we know for sure that he holds Shinu koina, and there's a knas so that the kanev shouldn't benefit from keeping the shvach of the animal, we have a different shaila. Kika kanes b'mezit. Where is Reb Meir kanse? Maybe it's only in the case of mezit. Aval b'shoigig lekanes, but maybe by shoigig he's not kanes. Idil ma'afilu b'shoigig nami kanes, or maybe even by shoigig he will be kanes. So what is shoigig? What is mezit? But a kanev is always mezit. So Rashi b'shoigig is a case to go in lekeach shalokach migazlan v'shbicha v'loyadesh gzula. What if you buy an animal off a gazlan? You don't know that that's stolen material, and now you use it. And you're meshabech. Now the original owner is coming to take his animal back. Now, if the gazlan was meshabech, he's a scoundrel. Will count him. Why should he make money off the back of the nigzel? So we take it all back. But this poor lekeach, who's innocent, he didn't know it was stolen goods. So of course the animal itself might go back because that's the owner's animal. But the shvach, maybe the lekeach should get to keep. What's Reb Meir's opinion about that? Tashma, chamisha goyvin minamicharorin. There are 5 people who don't have a right to take karka. They only have a right to take from the chosim that are not meshubed. So they couldn't take from a lekech. So just for instance, if Reuven lends Shimon $100,000, so with a star, so of course all of Shimon's karkois are meshubed to Reuven, are meshubed to Reuven. What if Shimon then goes and sells karka to Levi, and now Shimon defaults on the loan? Reuven can actually seize the property from Levi because it's called taking from the chosim meshubad. So there are 5 people who wouldn't be able to take from a lekach. They could only take from the chosim bnei chayim. Ve'eluhein perish u'shvach perish. Now we're going to soon see that perish u'shvach perish are if somebody buys a field off a ganim, or he buys a field off a loiva, and he improves the field. And now he's losing the field because the original owner of the malv is coming to seize the field. He takes, the question is, does he take the shvach that the loikeach was mishabeach the field or not? Right here, the loikeach invested $100,000 into the field. He improved it by, its value improved by maybe $200,000. He invested $100,000. That's worth $200,000 more. Now the malva or the nigzel is taking the field back. So does he get to take back the extra $100,000 or $200,000 that the field has improved? So in Paris or Shach Bears, there the person who sees the property wouldn't be able to do that. What if someone is marrying a woman who's coming into the marriage with children? He's not mechuyev to support this woman's children, but he accepted upon himself that he would do that. If something happens to him, they're not allowed to go take property that he had sold. They can only take from property that actually he has. Or we get choiv, shein by achrayis, or any star that you write that does not have achrayis in it, which does not include the right to collect from the chasim mishabadim, you wouldn't be able to collect from the chasim mishabadim. Uksuba's isha shein by achrayis, or uksuba's isha. Normally there's karkayis or mishubid, but what if this was written with a clause that says it's no karkas mishubid? So now that we had this brisa, let's see if we can figure out who the author of this brisa is.
1 second. The Makabel Ulav losing Ben Ishtai. When was this marriage? Before he sold the field or after?
Of course, before. If it's after, for sure. Even if it's Mishabot, it's not Mishabot. Even by Malvin Levy wouldn't be able to collect it. If I sell a property, then I borrow money. No one has a Havim in it. The Malvin can go take for the Lachel.
If he sold the field after that, why isn't that cool?
Because such a choiv we don't collect from Mishabotim. Such a choiv we don't collect from Mishabotim. That's the rule. So now we have a different question. I write a star and it doesn't have a chrayis. Star choiv shem by a chrayis. Or I write a ksuba in by a chrayis. Normally it has a chrayis. Normally when mivel star nechosim Mishabotim are a chrayis. Now, so that means what if I wrote a star and we didn't write a chrayis in? Do we say that it's a mistake and for sure there's a chrayis because every single star choiv, every single milv of a star has a chrayis? You say a chrayis to a sefer was merely a mistake, but there really was? Or do you say no, if it's not written, it's not written? Now clearly from this brisa, where we're giving validity to a star that doesn't have a chrayis, to a ksuba that doesn't have a chrayis, you say a chrayis lav to a sefer. It's not a mistake. If it's not there, it was intentionally not put there, because that's, I'm sorry? Not that you take from the Chosim Shabbat. So who holds man shamas lay that you can even have such a possibility? Where who holds that even if you didn't write a chrayis in the star, we say that in fact there was not a mistake and there is no achrayis. It's Reb Meir, which means the author of this brisa must be Reb Meir. Now let's look at one of the other cases in the brisa. The katani peiros u'shvach peiros. What is shvach peiros? Shvach peiros hechidami. Reuben sold a field, or Shimon stole a field from Reuben, and Shimon the Gazlan sold this field that would belong to Reuben. He sold it to Levi. Vishvicha. Levi invested $100,000, and now this field is worth an extra $200,000. And what happens is Reuben takes Shimon to Bezdin, or Levi to Bezdin, and he reclaims that field. Now Levi is losing not only the money that he paid for the field, but he's also losing all of the improvements that he made to the field. Now this Levi is an innocent man because he didn't know that it was stolen. Now, when Reuben is now taking the field away from Levi, who was the buyer. Sorry? Oh, that's right. Goiva as a keren minachasa mishubadim. The keren he could collect from nechasa mishubadim. So now what happened is first the owner, the original owner Reuben seizes the whole thing away from Levi, the field, the shvach, everything. Okay. Now this Levi who purchased the field from the Ghana, from Shimon with the chrayis, he has the claim now on Shimon. So Goives Hakar min Nechasim Mishubadim. He paid $100,000 for the field, and he improved it by $100,000. So $100,000 he can go to the Ganav, and if the Ganav has no properties to take, he could look at any property that the Ganav sold after Shimon bought this field from Reuben. Because any field that Shimon sold after Levi bought the field, right, is now Meshubit to Levi, because Levi's purchase, any purchase that Levi's purchase precedes, now is fair game for Levi to go after. So if Shimon had sold later on properties to Yehuda, to Zvulun and to Gad, Levi can go take those properties away. But that's only for the $100,000 that he paid for the property. The improvement, that's shvach min nechasim b'nei chayrin. The shvach, the extra $100,000 that he also has a right to get out of Shimon, because I put $100,000 into a field that I bought from you, and it's in the star normally, Rashi says, that I will pay you back. If the field that I sell you is seized to you, I will pay you back for the money, for the purchase of the field, and I will pay you back all of the shvach as well. but that I can only collect from the Chayrin, that I cannot collect from the Chashim Mushabad. So therefore, the Asi Bal Ira, Vishakal Ara Ushvache. Now, the Bride is telling us what my recourse is as Levi to go back to Shimon. I can take any karka that Shimon sold after he sold me this property, but I can't take anything from my shvach unless it's within Shimon's actual possession. And the svara for it is quite simple. When I buy a piece of property, I am going to look at any prior sales that my vendor made, because I know that if something goes wrong with one of those sales, they can come after me. So in a title search, I can find out that he sold 3 properties for a total of $1 million. I am exposed up to $1 million because somebody might come after me to take my field away. But how in the world am I supposed to anticipate? So at least I have a defined risk that I could make a decision on whether or not I want to accept. But shvach, that someone could improve the property, that's limitless. The sky's the limit. I would be paralyzed. I would never be able to buy a property because I have no way of mitigating, of even quantifying my potential loss, my liability. Therefore, it would grind commerce to a halt. It would grind real estate sales to a halt. Because of that, anything above the actual value of the property, you could only collect from the chayrin. A potential buyer is not going to be exposed in that way. So what happens? What happened? Reuben came. The reason why Levi wants to recover from his vendor, from Shimon, the land on the shvach, is obviously because Reuben took it away. Right? Reuben must have been able to take it away. If he didn't take it away, why would I be seeking tashlumin for it? So let's think about my lava amoris loyada the karka nixelos any nixelos. Pashas, the buyer, this poor lady who bought it, he doesn't know the karka nixelos. He doesn't know all these halachas. He bought it innocently. He improved it. Yet, what's happening? Even though this poor innocent guy who bought the field not knowing the liabilities, the owner, the original owner, Reuben, can come and take away not only the land, but he can also take away the shvach. You see, even though this poor lekech didn't do anything wrong, Reuben, the owner of the karka, can go take everything away, not only the karka, his shvach as well. So you see, the Knas of Reb Meir is even b'shogig. He's a Talmid Chacham. Why? What are the Talmid Chacham doing? Buying stolen property. Property they know is stolen? I don't know. But everybody knows the story where somebody asks his friend, tell me something. What does Yankel do for a living? He says, Yankel's a Ruv. He says, really? And what does his brother Beryl do? Oh, Beryl's Ochaganim. Right? So sometimes it happens that someone could be a Talmid Chacham, he could know better, but nevertheless he buys. There maybe Reb Meir is Knas and says that the original owner could take it away. But maybe if somebody bought it innocently, not knowing that there's an impact of stolen goods, maybe he would not be chayav. Okay, gewaltig. Sagt die Gemara weiter. Tashma. So we're still having a suffix on the side that Reb Meir holds. That betem Shinui koina. But it's only a Knas, so we don't want the ganef to benefit from this fact that the animal gave birth, from the fact that the animal had gizois. Would Reb Meir be kindness even if the lekeich who purchased the product was unaware? Tashma. Now we're talking about a case.
In this case, the lekeich Talmid Chacham doesn't mean that when he bought it, he knew that it was sold.
He must have. It's just a shy of if he's kind or not. Yeah, because just because you're a Talmid Chacham, it doesn't mean you would have known that it was stolen. Right? Yeah, now I hear what you're saying. Tashma. Once again, not a case of gzela. This is a case of a merchant or a tradesman, a craftsman who did not dye it the right color. And Rashi speaks out. This is called a shogig. There's a lot of people who don't realize that you're not allowed to do things different. In Lakewood, one of the biggest scandals that occurs over and over and over again is someone buys a piece of land and subdivides it and puts up 20 houses. And when he sells it to the buyers, he promises them a house that has exactly these features and these characteristics and this layout. And in the middle, he changes. So the owners now, when he bought this property, when he first sold the property, it's not worth very much. It's a new development. Let's say he will sell a house for 100,000. By the time he's in the middle of construction, the house is already worth 300,000. It goes up during construction because it becomes a development. Now, what happens is, this happens all the time. Someone goes, puts a deposit down, he puts $100,000 down or $50,000 down for the house, and that's money that he does not get interest on. That's called the deposit, which is part of what he's using probably to build. And in the middle, he sees that the project is not being delivered exactly as per promised. So now he says, hey, you promised A, you give me B. So the guy says, you know what? If you don't like it, I'll give you your deposit back. Because by now the house is already worth $200,000. And I already made $100,000 on your back with your deposit. So let's further other than Savi Shachar, and a guy doesn't realize that it's also to do a bait and switch, to sell product A and then deliver product B. So if Meir Eimer, Nois and Loi, the Meit Zimmer. He only has to pay the Meit Zimmer. The Meit Zimmer in, he only has to pay for the Tzimmer, the Meit Zimmer Vishvach Eloi. So you see that the Ganif here, or the Mishana here, the Uman here, doesn't have to pay the Tzimmer Vishvach. He only has to give back the original deposit. We talk about B'shogi Nami Knas. If you hold that Reb Meir holds even B'shogi you can Knas, then the Meit Zimmer Vishvach Ba'il Mitzvah. There's an argument that he should actually have to pay everything. You're a Mishana, we should cancel you. Now you have to give me the full value of my dyed wool. Elalav Shemamina b'mezit Knas v'shogig leKanas Shemamina. So our maskana is Reb Meir holds that be'etzem Shinu's kaina. There's a Knas that the Ganav shouldn't benefit from the shvach, but in the case of shogig, for instance, it's an unknowing lekeach, or in this case, where it's a vendor who doesn't realize that you're not allowed to do a bait and switch. That's called shogig. There, Reb Meir would not cancel.
Why do we say that it's the shogig? Why don't we say the unis? He does for a lot of people.
Rashi says that when the Gemara is clearing the Shiloh of shogig, it's referring to Elokeach who didn't know.
And that,
if you look at Rashi on base, you're talking about Rashi over here. But if you look at the original Shiloh on Amar Aleph, where the Gemara originally introduces the Shiloh, if you look at Rashi on Amar Aleph, B'shinui going like Keach Shalogach Migazlan V'Shmicha V'Lo Yada Shigzel. Yeah, and I understand, but you see that something that you might consider annoying is the Gemara is referring to that as a shayk.
But this case, when the dye is dyed is a different color,
right?
Why do we say it's a shayk?
Because Rashi says that a person doesn't necessarily know that it's also to be mishana. So maybe he didn't do an avla amazing. Maybe the avla of being mishana from what his deal was.
Not that he made a mistake.
He made a mistake.
Maybe he made a mistake.
Real mistake. Gewöhnlich, a tradesman doesn't like to get a name that does. Hat's gemacht a mistake. He has 50 pieces of wool, and that's nicht gehabt. That's nicht logisch, but it's vermischt.
I'm not sure that's a good horror. I don't know. But maybe that's worse. Maybe that's worse. I'd rather give my wool into somebody to dye who knows what he's doing, but B'davka changes sometimes, than someone who doesn't know the clue what he's doing.
Oh, he got us the
I hear. Okay, talk to more about
maybe that's why he's not comes.
At the end of the day, it seems like Rashi would not make that distinction. Either way, he's not doing this to be over and there. So this is what we had earlier. We've been focusing on Reb Meir, but in fact there were two other shittas in the Brisa. Rabbi Yehuda said, so let's just refresh our memory as to what the case was. So this is once again at the beginning of our sugya. So which means it was already a muberes, it was already loaded up, right? Our maskana was that it's a knas, and it's a knas to mezid. You give the gzel back the way it is, and you keep all the vlodas, meaning shinui. And if Shimon Omer, Royin Isa Kilu Shumu Etzla. You look at it as if it's a Shuma Etzla, meaning I only have to pay what I stole and I get to keep the Shvach. It seems like Reb Shimon and Reb Yehuda are saying exactly the same thing. So let's go back and see how our Gemara deals with this Shiloh.
It doesn't Rabbi Yehuda say that he has to give back the behemoth, and Rabbi Shimon says only money. The word of it.
But the main focus is, do I get to keep the Shvach or not? But giving back that animal or not, I'm not sure if that's enough of the distinction that the Gemara discusses, but you're touching on what the Gemara is going to say. So the Gemara, my benai, what is the difference? What if the animal you stole was not pregnant and it became pregnant? So the animal was mishabeach, but the shvach is still on top of the animal. Let's see Rashi inside. So you have an animal that's now ready to be shorn, but it wasn't shorn yet. So the shvach there, but it's still on top of the animal. That's the machlokes. Zok the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Zvid, the shvach shall gab gzel kamivli. Rabbi Yehuda suffered the nigzal having. Rabbi Yehuda holds it goes to the nigzal because gezerah chazeres beinei, right? Gezerah chazeres beinei, you give it back as it is, even though it has the shvach on top of it. Rabbi Shimon Zavar the gazlan hava, and that's why Roy Noisha Kilu Shuma. You pay back the value of the animal as you stole it, but you get the benefit from that shvach that's still on the animal. Okay, gewaltig. Rav Papa argues in Rav Shvid. And he holds no, the chula al mishvach shall gab gzel the gazlan. Everybody holds the gazlan gets to keep that. Here the question is, even shvach shaloy gab gazlan, anytime there's a shvach, even if you say Shinui koina and the gazlan gets to keep it, maybe he should have to pay a fee to the owner, like an oris, right? I benefit off your field, I got to pay. Maybe there's a machlokes if even when you say the gazlan gets to keep the shvach, does he have to pay a fee to the nigzal? Rabbi Yehuda of a shvach shall gabik zela, hula the gazlan have it. It belongs completely to the gazlan. In other words, gzel chazeres beinei. You give him back the animal, only the animal. You get to keep all the shvach. Rabbi Shimon Zavar lemechza l'shlish u'lerevia who the shakal gazlan. The gazlan gets a half, a third, or a quarter. He gets part of what he benefited, but he also has to pay back a fee to the owner of whose property he made money with. Let me. I only have 4 minutes left, so let me finish and we'll review that later. Tanan we learned Gazal para ben is abra etzla, and I believe this is our Mishnah. Someone stole a para and it became pregnant while it was at the Ganev's house. V'yolda, and then they gave birth. Or Rachel ben Natan actually the Gazal mishalim kishash akzela. There only do you pay kishash akzela. Yolda in lo yolda hadra beina mashma. If the animal didn't give birth yet, it's mashma there. The whole thing goes back to the animal as is. Zok Gemara b'shlomo l'Reb Zvid. The Omer shvach shal gabek zel the nigzal hava l'Reb Yehuda. B'shvitlam according to Reb Zvid, who holds that at the least according to Reb Yehuda, he has one Tana out there who holds that the shvach that's still on the animal, the Galim gets to keep it. Then Hamani Reb Yehuda, you could say this is going according to Reb Yehuda. Ella. I'm sorry, now you can keep it. The nigzal of it. It goes back to the nigzal. You can go, this is going to Yehuda, that the shvach goes back to the nigzal with the animal. Ella Rav Papa, the Amr the Gazan Havi. Rav Papa says there's no Tana who holds that shvach shal gaba behema belongs to the nigzal. Everybody holds the Gazan gets to keep it. And the discussion was really the Shlish Revia, what's Pshat in our Mishnah? Hamani, who will our Mishnah go according to? Lo Rabbi Yehuda, v'lo Rabbi Shimon. Amalach Rav Papa, that's not a problem. Hu adin, afilu lo yolda nami, kishash akzel huda mishalim. Don't make the dik from our Mishnah. Davka by Yolda, does the Ganav get to keep it? Halo Yolda, the Ganav doesn't get to keep it. No, the Ganav gets to keep it no matter what. So how come the Mishnah specifies Yolda, if even Lo Yolda? V'hadakatani Yolda, the Ganav gets to keep it. Mashma Lo Yolda not. Nah. I did not have Reisha Yolda. The Balta Reisha, it was relevant. The Mishnah says Yolda, Nosav Sefer Nama Yolda. But Avada Hudin Lo Yolda, the Ganav gets to keep it. Tanya Kavasa to Rav Papa, we have a raya to Rav Papa that there's this Indian that even if the Ganav gets to keep the shvach, he still has to pay a fee, like an oris, to the Balabayas, because it's a Mefurish Brisa. Reb Shimon Omer, Roy Noisa, Kilo Hishuma Etzloi Bekesef, Lemechzel Shlish Revia. Even if the Ganav gets to keep the shvach, he still has to pay a fee. Gewaltig. Omar, Rav Ashi. Kevin ben Rav Kahana, when I was by Rav Kahana's house, Ibayilan, we had the following shayla. The Rav Shimon, the Amar Lemechsel L'Shlosh Revia, who the Shakal Goslin, according to Rav Papa's understanding, and this brisa, that according to Rav Shimon, when the Goslin gets to keep the Shvach, he's treated like an Ur, so to speak, and he gets to keep a percentage of the Shvach, but some of it he has to give back to the Bailim. Kimis Alkinin Lei, Bidamimis Alkinin Lei, Oidumami B'Sarashah. Now, the owner is entitled to, let's say, 2/3 of the shvach. So does the owner give him 1/3 of the shvach and keep for himself 2/3 of the wool? Or no, the guy that keeps all the wool, or the owner gives all the wool, and he pays him up with cash. Upashtana, and we replace it, Mehadam Rab Nachman Amar Shmuel. Shloisha, Shaman Lahena Shvach, Umayal Noisav Medam. There's 3 people that are entitled to shvach, but we can pay him off with money. The Beluhain, Bechar Lepashet, Ubachayv Lekeach, Ubachayv Yisayim. So let's go through these one at a time. Bechar Lepashet. What would happen if there's a property worth $100,000 and there's a Bechar in a Pashet? So instead of splitting it up 50-50, you would split it up 30-30-30, right? 33 to 30, 30, 3 times 33 and a third. Or let me use a different number. Let's use the number 12. Let's say the shkak was worth $12, you would get $6 and I would get $6. But if I'm a Bechar, you would get $4 and I would get $8, right? Now, what happens if before we split it up, this $12 property became worth $24? You're entitled to $6 of the shvach, and I'm entitled to $6 of the shvach. I don't get pishnayim of the shvach. So if we split it in half, how much do I owe you? I owe you $2 of the shvach. Because if we split the animal if we split the property that I got 2/3 of the property, $8, and you got $4 of the property, now I'm getting $8 of the shvach, and you're getting $4 of the shvach, but you should be getting 6. So I would have to pay you 2. How do I pay you that 2? Do I pay you with cash, and I get to keep that extra shvach, or do I actually have to give you some of the property so that it equalizes? That is the shayla.
It's not that he invested money on you.
Maybe the estate invested money, but not I put in more than you did. So the halacha is when we pay off the shvach, I can pay you off with cash. That's b'chor lepashet. B'chayv lekech is the same thing. If a b'chayv is toyref, l'kulchos, because you bought a field that's meshubah to me, and now the lekech has improved the field. What I do is I take the whole field back. I don't have to leave you some of that field. I pay you off in cash for the shvach. And the same thing with the b'chayv liyasayim when a b'chayv collects a misayim. So Amar Lei Ravina L'Ravashi. So Amar Lei Ravina L'Ravashi.
And you see that such a Goslin.
I guess it doesn't discuss Goslin. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we have a sheetus on the shal yet. But we'll stop here and we'll be mamshech tomorrow. We'll pick this up back tomorrow. Kishkoyach, have a wonderful day.
Question is that I am from before previous Matkilet that the Behida says that he keep if he stole a behind and then it was a pregnant behind had a child or it was a laden and he took off. So because the Shinui is not calling it, not Rabbi on the behind.
You're talking about Zvid Pshat or a puppet? Shvach shal gabe beima or not shvach shal gabe beima?
We want to bring a raya from the brayso that says after that if he did it in Gudel Veshbiach,